Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jata Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatang Vitang Tang Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitangscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Adadana Srinam Dantaya Ridam Jatche Puna Puna Srimad Rupa Padam Boja Dulisham Janma Janmani Gauravag Vigraham Vande Gaurangam Gauravaibavam Gaura Sankirtanomatam Gaura Karunya Sundaram Nindantam Pulukaut Korena Bikasam Nipa Prasunachtabim Prodrikritra Bujadvayam Hari Hari Ituchai Vedantam Muhu Nrityantam Drutamasru Nirjara Chaye Sinchantam Urvitalam Gayantam Nija Parasadaya Parivritam Sri Gaura Chandram Nama Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahaya Himavadivyachta Visundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. Wanted to say something in praise of Srila Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. His Tirobhav was perhaps yesterday, well, depending on where we're speaking, it could still be within that time frame. Even some of these slokas that we're quoting, we first heard from him, connected to that thread, to that flow, some mysteriously mystical, sweet, enchanting song from his heart as he would sing the slokas of either Rupa Goswami, Srila Guru Maharaj. And so we like to hear him whenever possible. If we were in Mayapur, Navadvip, and we heard he was there, we try to find him. Sometimes he would grace us with his association. I remember on one Ekadashi, we had the good fortune to have his association and to hear his kirtan and assist him with kol and kartals. And we had heard from Srila Prabhupada that, that some great devotees on Ekadashi, they stay up all night, engaged in kirtan or glorifying the Lord and his devotees. But when we would hear that, we would think sometimes like, oh, that must be very difficult to do. You're very tired and, been fasting. But what was implied, perhaps not explicitly stated, but was implied implicitly was that they're so enlivened by Krishna consciousness and Krishna kirtan, they're unable to sleep. It's not that they're struggling, forcing themselves to stay awake to complete the vow, but they're so enlivened at that time, on that day, that they're unable to sleep. So they stay up the whole night singing, or engaged in varieties of kirtan. So that evening, Babaji Maharaj stayed in our room, and as it got later and later, we all drifted off into slumber, but to the sounds of him singing, quoting slokas. And when we woke up at 4 o'clock, we woke up to the sounds of him singing and quoting slokas. And so he'd been doing that the whole night. And of course, Babaji Maharaj, he's always like Gurudev Trinadapi Sunichena Sloka, Babaji Maharaj, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. he would say that verse with such relish, right? Repeatedly, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kaloan Asteva, Nasteva, Nasteva, Gatyaranyata. So that was, in essence, his answer to everything. So repeatedly, we would sort of, being aware of that, half aware of that, but sort of lulled into forgetfulness and ask Babaji Maharaj some questions. So a devotee would ask Babaji Maharaj, what's the answer to this question? And we'd sit there and listen, and Babaji Maharaj would go, Hare Krishna! Like that would be the answer to the question. And we go, oh, why didn't I think of that? You know? Or they'd ask another question, and he'd go, chant Hare Krishna! Right. And then, the Bengali devotee Sarva Bhavana Prabhu, at one point he said, but Babaji Maharaj, how to overcome lust and sex desire? And Babaji said, you are trying to overcome, I am trying to overcome. Chant Hare Krishna. And so one boy was particularly enamored, like of what we've just read, we've heard of Babaji's, and Saraswati Thakur dismissed them for the most part, with the exception of Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhagwat Das Babaji, Bangshi Das Babaji. So this boy, he wanted to do some seva for Babaji Maharaj. So he had this very nice chadar that he'd purchased. And so he's wanting to offer that, because Babaji Maharaj, he would have like a little t-shirt, the short dress of the Babaji, and a little like uttari, and that was it. And his mala, and that way he's moving within the world. So this boy is very earnestly once, and Babaji Maharaj, oh, Prabhu, you know, not necessary, you know, oh, but from my heart, no, Prabhu. And then, so he's not accepting. And then the boy starts becoming tearful, you know, like, well, he won't accept. And seeing that, then Babaji Maharaj goes, all right, Prabhu, I am accepting your gift. And the boy was like so happy, and Babaji Maharaj takes the chadar, touches it to his head, and says, I am accepting this. He said, but I'm going to keep it with you. So when I come here, you'll have it for me. I thought that was, he accepted it, he did everything. So, and when there were certain slokas of Srila Guru Maharaj, in retrospect, I realized I first heard from him, and this mysterious, the unheard before type melody and the poetry, and it made me want to find the source of that. Like I've heard one verse he liked very much. He'd sing, you know, Krishna, 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 Krishna Nama, Kirtanam, Rama, Rama, Gana Ramya, Dibya Chandra, Nartanam, Yatra Tatra, Krishna Nama, Dana Loka, Nistanam, Prema Dama, Devameva, Nomi Gaura, Sundaram. When I heard that, it was so beautiful, and I thought, where does that come from? So I went to some of my Sanskrit-knowing god brothers, and I'd play the tape for them. Said, Babaji Maharaj sang this. What is this? You know, and they look in their book and everything. That is the Prema Dhamma Deva Stotram of Bhakti Raksak Sridhar Dev Goswami. You know, aha. And Guru Maharaj would ask Babaji Maharaj, why do you sing my songs and verses? Right? because although it's somewhat taken for granted now, he popularized songs of Srila Guru Maharaj throughout Sri Gaudiya Math, particularly, the Pranamami Siddha Prabhupada Padam. So you can imagine, these are disciples of Srila Saraswati Thakur. Right? He's my Param Guru Maharaj, is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So his disciples, part of my Guru Varga, and they're so exalted. It reminds me of Madhavendra Puri will sometimes say, how glorious he is. Look who his disciples are. Advaita, Nityananda, Paramananda Puri, etc. So in the case of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Gurudev mentioned this famous Lord Jetland from England, who had some appreciation for Sri Gaudiya Math and Srila Saraswati Thakur. He said when he saw Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur surrounded by like a dozen of his sannyas disciples, he said, I felt as though I was looking at Jesus Christ and the 12 apostles. Like that magnitude. For a Christian to say that was something. And in Srila Guru Maharaj's birthday poem he wrote for Srila Saraswati Thakur, each 5 verses, the last line in each one is Pranamami cha charanantika paricharaka sahitam. That as Krishna is not worshipped in isolation or alone, Krishna always means Radha and Krishna, Lalita Vishaka, Nanda Yashoda, Sridham Subal, etc. He's never divorced of his devotees. To view Krishna in isolation, Guru Maharaj said, is a distant realization. As you come nearer, you see he's surrounded by his entourage. So similarly, Guru Maharaj says here, we do not worship Guru in isolation. He also has his entourage. So we, of course, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and so many other exalted disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But Krishnadas Babaji Maharaja is certainly one of them. So, but still, he and Guru Maharaj, they're godbrothers. So Guru Maharaj is saying, it's unusual. Why would you be singing my songs and my poems and you go to all these mats? And so you can imagine the disciples of Saraswati Thakur, when Babaji Maharaj is visiting their mat, and then he starts singing Pranamami Shada Prabhupada Padam, they're astonished. Just as I'm asking, where does that come from? They're saying, who wrote this? And of course, Srila Guru Maharaj. Some of his godbrothers, they would take one verse every Ekadashi, and that would be the tenor of their talk for the evening. Sing the whole prayer and then take one verse like that. And this may be a little hard to believe, but Srila Prabhupada sent his disciples, Swami Maharaj Prabhupada sent his disciples to Chaitanya Saraswat Mat in perhaps 1973 during the Gaur Purnima festival. And his disciples had never heard this before. But when Babaji Maharaj would finish singing Pranamami Shada Prabhupada Padam, then he would start singing Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. And it was not being done in ISKCON. They'd never heard that. That's why I'm saying you may not believe this. They were not doing that. So you can imagine when Prabhupada's disciples at the end of a kirtan hear someone start singing Jaya Prabhupada, they go insane. And they're singing and dancing, and when they return to Mayapur, it becomes part of the program. And sometimes Babaji Maharaj, again, would visit there, and some devotees, there'd be like in a room packed, and And we're asking him to do some kirtan, to lead a kirtan. And some, like myself and some of my godbrothers, we're like, I guess you say, fans, devotees, have appreciation. And others are apprehensive. They're thinking, is this one of those godbrothers Prabhupada warned us about? They're a little reluctant. And then Babaji Maharaj would start the kirtan. And imagine, it's a room packed full of devotees. And so myself and my friend, we're joining in, responding. And then gradually a few other devotees are joining in. And then half the room. Then around midway through his kirtan, their hearts are melting. And there are some tapes that may still exist. Halfway through, the first devotee starts, saying Hari Bol and Jai, and then a little bit further on, they start screaming. They're in such an ecstatic, they're just screaming with joy. And Babaji Maharaj playing his mridanga. And that's what made him happy. When he'd see everyone is taking Krishna Nam, and then at the end of the kirtan, his Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam, Kalona Stevana Stevana Steva Gatyaranyata. So, just sometimes it would seem that even if I wasn't looking for it, I got some connection with him. And in retrospect, I'm very appreciative and see some sort of a divine pattern. But once we were preaching in UP, in Delhi area, only Sandeep will know what I'm talking about here. In a place, Meerut and Bareilly, these two towns. And in one of them, I believe it was Meerut, we find that there's, a disciple of Srila Saraswati Thakur, a doctor, and he invites us to stay at his house. And this is a Gaudiya Mat Grihastha. So his house, it is a Grihastha ashram. There's Mahaprabhu and Radha Govinda deities, an altar, curtain. There's so many offerings every day, arati. It's the full program going on at his house. But he will leave every day and go to work and then come back in the evening for our program. And I'm giving talks, and he's always sitting behind everyone and kind of really scrutinizing. And I'm being extra careful about what I say. And 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, go by, and he's still. And then I say are there any questions? And he goes, do you know Babaji Maharaj? Like that. And at first I was going to say yes, and then I thought, well, there's so many Babajis. Which one do you mean? Krishnadas Babaji. And I was going to say yes, and then I thought, half of the Babajis are named Krishnadas, the other half are named Ramdas. So I said, which Krishnadas Babaji? Gaudiya Mat. Gaudiya Mat. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, he will not stay with any grihastha. He goes, but he stays here. When his 6 months program, they stay for Vrindavan, Kartik, and then make their way to Navadvip Mayapur for Gaur Purnima, then Vaishak, like Gurudev would travel in Vaishak. Then they start making their way towards Puri for Rath Yatra. There's a way these exalted souls move. And he said, but he will stay here. And for our deities, do kirtan and sing his slokas and everything. And he said, I keep a room for him upstairs. Would you like to see it? And he's like, yes. We go upstairs and we're all giving dandavats. And then there's a metal hook that comes out of the wall, and there's a mridanga wrapped in a cloth. And I said, and we just sort of open it up. We're like giving dandavats to the mridanga, put it back. And remember, this man is a doctor, Dr. Guha. And he says, but last year Babaji Maharaj was here, and he was very ill. So he was staying here and with fever, and I became so worried that I wanted to examine him. And he said, so he brought his medical kit and put on the stethoscope, and put the stethoscope over his heart, and he said, and I heard no heartbeat. And he said, but this cold kartals and Hare Krishna. I'm just telling you, imagine that. The way he said, there was no heartbeat. You heard Nam Sankirtana coming out of his heart. So, that last verse of the Bhagvatam, I think 18,000, the last verse must be all-encompassing, and he would sing that. He'd say, Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkha Samanas Tannamami Harim Param. Nama Sankirtanam Yasya. Like that. So, in 1979, in March of 1979, I heard that Babaji Maharaj, like we don't say, is Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj here? This is in Mayapur, we're in Mayapur at the time. And I heard he's at the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat in Navadvip. A year before, Prabhupada left the world in November of 77, and 78 March, under his order, the leading devotees went to hear from Srila Guru Maharaj. That's when he told, Guru's like the water, Krishna's the sun, Shisha's the lotus, and Slokas from Raghunath Das and Viraha. So I heard the divine voice of Srila Guru Maharaj that year, and these tapes which I copied and would listen to regularly and be nourished to the extreme. But it never occurred to us that we could see Srila Guru Maharaj. So I went to the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat this time with a friend of mine to see Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. And we enter this room, which in those days was Hari Charan Prabhu's room that later became an office, but that front room there. And Babaji Maharaj was there on the bed, and we gave our dandavats, and I so badly wanted to record him. I'm just sort of making it up on the fly. But what I'm telling him is what I thought. But I said that with so many of the senior disciples of Srila Saraswati Thakur leaving the world, that the proper way to do kirtan could vanish. You understand where this is going? Because I have a little tape recorder, and I'm like pulling that out, And Babaji Maharaj became annoyed, and he's seeing the tape recording. He said, "Important thing is that you chant Hare Krishna." And it was like a thunderbolt to our hearts, and our arms went into our japa, and we just started going, Hare Krishna, Krishna. We just started chanting japa, like feverishly. And Babaji Maharaj was sitting there, and after around 2 or 3 rounds, he started to lighten up a little bit. And then after, I'd say like about 6 rounds, he was like, almost like conducting. Then he was like, now he was happy. And I'd also pushed the tape recorder back in the bag, And then he is very sprightly. He just sort of sprung off the bed and said, come. And we start going, just following him like that. And we go through where Aranya Maharaj Krishna Sharan used to do his accounting, and then we go in the little passageway and we're spiraling upstairs, and he's taking us, and then we look up and there's Srila Guru Maharaj sitting in his plantation chair. That very Hare Krishna, like that. And I'm saying, oh my God, I didn't think we're allowed. We just like do Shastanga Dandava, like around 30 meters away from Guru Maharaj, and then just start crawling towards him. And when we finally get there, Babaji Maharaj perches himself like behind where Guru Maharaj's shoulder, behind there, and he goes, listen! Like that. And he's going, Hare Krishna, Krishna. All his mouth was in perpetual nam motion. Hare Krishna, listen. And Guru Maharaj's sense of humor is also very fine and wry. And he said, you are members of the Hare Krishna movement. And this gentleman, he is rather fond of Krishna Nam. So your connection is natural. And the first thing Srila Guru Maharaj said, after we've introduced who we are and what was our seva, he said, our duty is to convert ourselves into a proper medium. That's the very first thing he said. It's just this eternal flow, the Bhakti Raksak, Siddhanta Vani. Wherever you connect with it, whether there, another, it just, because I sometimes would reflect, I wonder what the first thing I heard, what was it? Our duty is to convert ourselves into a proper medium. Then he said, we may not understand fully what is passing through us. Right? We're reading, we're hearing, and he's saying, but our duty is to convert us into a proper medium. That's seva, to allow ourselves to be used. Right? And he's saying, and it may exceed your own capacity. I've mentioned at other times, the Krishna consciousness movement, for the most part, was spread by, and we have Srila Prabhupada, but then you can say the secondary agents were less than perfect, to put it that way. So, what does Krishna say in the Gita? Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupasate tesham viyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. I compensate for their, what's the word? Inadequacies. Like you were saying the other, Gurudev compensating. Krishna's, he's compensating. So the representation could be less than perfect, but the person may be getting a connection with perfection. Krishna's compensating for that. That's on one case. Then at the other extreme, just may be so high what Krishna wants to reveal to someone. The agent may also be perfect, and still it may exceed their capacity. And that's according to Mahaprabhu. Because as we've heard, and we've mentioned recently, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is trying to educate the young sannyasi, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, about Vedanta. And after some days, Mahaprabhu said, I understand Vedanta fully, I just don't know what you're talking about. And Guru Maharaj says, to regain his prestige, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya starts explaining the Atmarama Sloka in 9 different ways. Like, what do you think of that? And what is Mahaprabhu's response? 18 explanations, not touching upon the 9 given by Sarvabhauma. But Guru Maharaj makes a fine point. But he's saying that's according to the necessity of Sarvabhauma. So 18 levels of meaning coming out. This is again revisit. Sanatana Goswami Prabhu asked Mahaprabhu that I heard you gave these 18 different types of explanations to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. If you would be so kind to grace me, I would like to hear them. And what did he say? I don't remember. And besides, Sarvabhauma, he's a madman, I'm a madman, 2 madmen were having a discussion. I don't recall exactly what was said, but I can say something. And then he gives 60 explanations. And Guru Maharaj mentioned, so we're saying 1860, saying because Sanatana Goswami Prabhu's necessity is greater, his capacity is greater, he's drawing more. And then we hear after 60, and Sanatan's saying, this is beyond human, this is divine revelation to the extreme. And Mahaprabhu says, oh Sanatan, by your association, I hear another meaning awakening within me. And gives the 61st explanation. And Sanatan saying, no, you are the Lord himself. And he's saying, no, Sanatan, why are you praising me? Every letter of the Bhagvatam is infinite. Right? And then he quotes this famous verse, Ahang Vedmi Sukhaveti Vasaveti Naveti Va. That where Shiva says, I know the meaning of the Bhagavatam, Sukadev knows the meaning of the Bhagavatam, and Vyas may know or may not know. And they say, wait, no, Vyas wrote the Bhagavatam, how can he not know? He's saying, he may know or he may know up to a point, and there may be more passing beyond his capacity. So Mahaprabhu says to him, and of course, he's Mahaprabhu. This is his pastime, but it's an important point to be understood, according to Srila Guru Maharaj. So he's saying, Sanatan, what's passing through me may exceed the capacity of what I know, but the one thing I know for certain is that Krishna wants to grace you through me. That I know. But what's passing through me is according to your necessity. So if Mahaprabhu himself will say that, and Srila Guru Maharaj quoted this so many times, saying when it is a divine transaction, it is like that. Right? So he said, so then, back to his original point, our duty is to convert ourselves into proper mediums. Right? So, in honor of Krishnadas Babaji Maharaja, I wanted to read a little bit from The Search for Sri Krishna, Reality to Beautiful, regarding the holy name. And so Guru Maharaj said, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur emphasized, and Babaji Maharaj will appear in here also, that kirtan means not only loudly singing the holy name, but preaching. Jiva Goswami has given a definition of Sankirtan. Bahubir militva Yad kirtanam tadeva sankirtanam. When many people come together and glorify the Supreme Lord Krishna, it is known as Sankirtan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and introduced Sankirtan. In this age of Kali, if the holy name is chanted congregationally, the combined efforts will be fruitful. Sango Shakti Kalo Juge. There is the difference between the preaching mission of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the so-called bhajan of the Sahajya imitationists. So then Guru Maharaj tells the story. So Babaji Maharaj was always had this affinity for the holy name. We heard even when he, before coming to Gaudiya Math, like when he was in college and he was like on the track team and running marathons, he would chant while he would run. You know? So even after coming to Gaudiya Math, he always gravitated towards anything that involved extensive Nam Sankirtan. And sometimes going into isolation, which was not approved by Saraswati Thakur. But once when he was doing that, in a place called Bali Ati, which is modern day Bangladesh, was East Bengal at the time. So he's in this, what Guru Maharaj describes as the jungle of Bali Ati, chanting a lakh of Krishna Nam every day, 64 rounds. Guru Maharaj is in charge of the Delhi Math. Right? And Babaji Maharaj is a friend of his, and but he's thinking, there are some devotees, they're of the opinion, no, that is the desired service. And even to go so far as to say, like, and those who cannot do this, then they can do other types of seva. Right? So Guru Maharaj is wondering, he's thinking of inviting Babaji Maharaj to come and help him in the Delhi Math and do seva, but would that be lesser than the Nam Bhajan he's doing? So he wrote to Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati Thakur, and got this letter back where he said, if you will get him to come from there and join you in the seva of the Delhi Math, he said, you'll be his real friend. He said, because I do not recognize that sitting in the jungle of Baliati, counting beads, that's what he called it. He didn't say that counting beads, that is Krishnanushilana, favorable to the culture of devotion. So Guru Maharaj, pulling him that way. And he had some appreciation, like there are these Kirtan Melas they have in different parts of Bengal, and many different groups would come there. So Babaji Maharaj, he will go there, but some of the people singing, they're Sahajya imitationists. It means something else to him, but they're like that. But this Guru Maharaj does not approve of this, even from his beloved godbrother and friend. So during one of these melas, Guru Maharaj throws him out of the Chaitanya Saraswati Math. And Babaji Maharaj is making the rounds, and he's in Mayapur, and the Bandari manager from one of the other Gaudiya Maths, he goes, Babaji Maharaj, what are you doing here? I thought you were staying at Srila Sridhar Maharaj's Math. He goes, Srila Sridhar Maharaj ousted me from his Math. What? Why did Sridhar Maharaj, he should not do that. Such an exalted soul as yourself, that is not right. Why did he do that? And then he mentioned about those melas. And then the man said, oh, Sridhar Maharaj has done right. You should be thrown. So, because there are certain areas where there's zero tolerance. And go, Sahajism, Mayavad. So, meanwhile, back at Chaitanya Saraswati Math, the unmistakable voice of Babaji Maharaj coming down the road, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And Srila Gurudev and Srila Guru Maharaj, they're wondering about that. Babaji Maharaj comes in, Srila Gurudev Maharaj takes him up to Srila Guru Maharaj, and he's there. And Guru Maharaj said, I have ousted you from my mat. Why are you here now? He said, it is true you ousted me from your mat, but you didn't say I couldn't come back. And Gurudev and Guru Maharaj look at him, oh, all right, but no more of that. So, so Guru Maharaj continues. Kirtan means preaching. Sravanam, kirtanam. Kirtan does not simply mean loudly chanting, but preaching. And preaching means there must be a fight with the opposition party. Kirtan means a fight. Kirtan means to create the divine vibration which will fight with all the ordinary vibrations that are floating in this world in subtle and gross waves. So Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur told us that our Tulsi Mala should not fast. That his minimum advice was we must do some service in the form of chanting and counting on the beads at least once daily. His exact words were, Malika upabashna. The mala should not fast. But his general instruction was to preach as much as possible. So, then he says, so the preaching mission of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Sri Gaudiya Mat, has declared totalitarian war against Maya, illusion, and even all other existing conceptions of religion. And our authority is Srimad Bhagvatam and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Divine love is the supremost goal of every soul. Beauty and love is the summum bonum, our highest attainment. That is the ultimate controlling principle and not power. And beauty and love are found at their highest position in Krishna, in Vrindavan. The ultimate conception of the absolute truth is that of reality, the beautiful, and divine love. As Guru Maharaj sometimes says, Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Satchid Anandam, Ananda Sundar, Sundarananda. At the same time, the difference between lust and love should be clearly realized. That should not be misconceived. The acme of dedication is demonstrated in the love of the inhabitants of Braja. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, in a nutshell, has given us one sloka. Aradya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Taddama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachid Upasana Brajabadu Bargena Jakalpitai Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatrapi Napara Tatradaram Napara. What is the highest type of Aradya Bhagavan, the highest type of worship of Bhagavan? Brajesha Tvanaya Taddama Vrindavan. What is conceived and practiced in Vrindavan? By whom? Ramya Kachid Upasana Brajabadu Bargena Jakalpitai. Sometimes Guru Maharaj would say, what was invented by Radharani and the Braja Gopis. Kalpite means imagined, conceived, but sometimes you say invented. And I say, so if they invented it, that means they have the copyright, trademark, that's in their hand. And then, so that line, and what is the evidence for this? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam, the Amala Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the perfect and purest evidence and proof of this. And what is given there? Pramanamamalam, Prema Pumarto Mahan. that beyond Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, the fifth and ultimate goal of life, Prem, love divine, as he's saying, the truth, reality, beautiful, and divine love. And how have we come to learn this? From Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from Mahaprabhu himself. This is his teaching. His teaching, the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are that Radharani and the Braja Gopis, they're the ultimate personification and embodiment of Krishna consciousness. Right? So Krishna Nam will help us greatly to go towards Vrindavan. Its importance is there, like an express train. The holy name of Krishna carries us to the goal without stopping at any other station. Actually, he said special train. If we're chanting the name without any formal petition, without asking, give me this, give me that, it acts like a special train that will go to Vrindavan non-stop. There, the impurities of karma and jnana are absent. The devotees of Vrindavan simply think, I want Krishna. I do not know what is good or bad. I simply want Krishna. So, he says, there are so many sayings in the scriptures to encourage our realization of the holy name. Like one verse, Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. In the Kali Yuga, Krishna is descended in the form of his holy name. Like, what could be more merciful dispensation of the Absolute than to descend in the form of his holy name, right? Otherwise we hear, there's so many types of penances, mantras to chant, religious performance, this, that, and the other thing. Just one thing you have to do. Chant the name of Krishna. Right? Guru Maharaj said, the sum total of the infinite appearing as though finite. Krishna, in 2 syllables. But what do we hear in the poetry of Srila Rupa Goswami? Remember that when Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar, they go to visit Rupa Goswami, Haridas Thakur, who are staying at the Siddha Gokul, they stop there on their way to bathing, and one day Mahaprabhu's coming and Rupa's writing one of his books, and Mahaprabhu's saying, well, what book are you working on? And picks up a page of the manuscript, and first thing he says is, just the handwriting of Rupa Goswami is inconceivably beautiful. He said, looks like rows of pearls. Imagine it, like pearls, 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 like looping pearls. And Mahaprabhu looks and sees this verse. And then he's showing the Swarup Damodar and thinking, he's never seen such a wonderful verse about the holy name of Krishna. Right? Rupa Goswami himself collects verses in praise of the holy name of Krishna. Haridas Thakur is the Namacharya. He knows all the verses in praise of the holy name of Krishna. But they've never seen anything or heard anything as wonderful as this. So the next time Mahaprabhu gathers his devotees, that and this Priyo Soyam Krishna verse, he's asking Rupa Goswami, he wants to, as Gurudev would say, no, Guru Maharaj said to introduce him, but Guru Maharaj say to indicate that it will be the Rupa Nuga line. Right? So he's certifying Rupa Goswami and asks him, he's saying, Rupa, recite the verses that you've written. And we're told that Rupa Goswami is so modest and so shy that he doesn't. Even though Mahaprabhu is telling him to, he's not. He's that humble, modest, shy. So Swarup Damodar starts, he already knows the verses now. But after hearing the Priya Soyam Krishna verse, Mahaprabhu says, but Rupa, tell that verse upon hearing which everyone becomes happy, and all suffering and all lamentation vanishes. And that is the verse, Tunde Tandavani Ritim Vitanute Tundavali Labdiye Karna Krodha Kadambini Gadayate Karnar Budhevyas Biham Cheta Prangani Sarvendriyanam Kritim No Jane Janita Kiyadbi Amrite Krishneti Varna Dvayi. Krishneti Varna. These two syllables, Krish and Na. It's in the play Vidagdha Madhava. Remember, it's not a play or a drama in the conventional sense. He writes reality. He writes supreme reality. Supreme reality comes out of his pen. So, did it happen and he wrote it, or he wrote it and it happened, or both, or any variation? It's real. That flow. By respectfully, faithfully hearing these things, we enter in that flow according to a capacity or appreciation. So these two devotees, we're talking Guhya Makyati Pritchati, devotees should reveal their hearts to one another. And what does that one devotee say from their heart? Like, I don't know how much nectar there are in the two syllables Krishna. And if these are two devotees moving on the plane of Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntyar Prithivyari Sakala Chinmoy, the ground, the soil is Chinmoy. Chintamani gems, Chinmoy. It's not only spiritually conscious substance, but Krishna conscious substance enriched to the infinite degree. Right? Supremely enriched with Krishna conception is the soil. So what to speak of the divine personages who traverse that soil? Right? And one devotee says, I don't know how much nectar there can be extracted from these two syllables, Krish and Na. What do they say? And because when you're chanting the name of Krishna, it's so sweet, the nectarine current is so wonderful that one tongue is insufficient. So your heart desires to have millions of tongues. Later, in the chapter on Nectar of the Holy Name, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, Hriday Bolite. Guru Maharaj is saying, it goes from the heart outward. The heart is moving the tongue. Not that Namakar Bahiroi Bata Namakabunoi. We chant these syllables and then you get something. You chant these syllables and purify yourself. You chant these syllables and not that way. That's going external to internal. Right? As Guru Maharaj says there, Namakar Bahiroi Bata Namakabunoi. It's never that. Saying, but Hridaya Balita, when the heart is under the influence, then it's moving the tongue to express Krishna Nam. And so thinking that one tongue is insufficient to taste all the nectar, and what do you say? Karnar Budhevya Spriham, and the sound is so sweet and wonderful that two ears are insufficient to capture all that divine sound. One desires to have millions of ears. So millions of tongues and millions of ears. So this is nothing like that has ever been expressed anywhere. And what we can take from there is to say, there is a plane like that where this kind of heart expression will manifest in an authentic, real, and substantial way, then what is that? And Guru Maharaj says, to include, we say Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. From the sound comes the divine form of Krishna. So if we follow this, we're saying, wanting millions of tongues, millions of ears, and then the form of Krishna appears. And what are they saying? 2 eyes are insufficient to see the beauty of Krishna. One needs to have millions of eyes. And not only millions of eyes, millions of unblinking eyes. Right? That's Gopi-bhav. Atati yadbhavan anikananam tutir yugayate tamapasyatam kutila kundalam srimukam jate yada dikshitam pakshma kridrasham. That they're cursing Brahma, like for making eyes that blink. Or only two? Look, the two eyes are incapable of, young Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam, of appreciating the Achintya Guna Swarup of Shama Sundar Krishna. So that verse, think about that. Mahaprabhu, he is saying, Rupa, you have composed the verse upon hearing which, if you can really hear it and appreciate it, saying, will remove all suffering and all lamentation and drown you in an ocean of ecstatic joy. That's the poetry of Rupa Goswami. So when Guru Maharaj, Babaji Maharaj, why you're singing my songs? Babaji Maharaj said, I find them to be on the same level of Rupa Goswami. And I'll just conclude with that. So Rupa Goswami, in his Chaitanyastakam, very beautiful, saying, Raso Dhamma Kamar Budama Dura Dhamojula Tanur. So how beautiful is Mahaprabhu? Because we said, if Krishna, Achintya Guna Swarup, Krishna, Shobhana Krishna, right? Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham, 10 million cupids. So he's saying, Mahaprabhu, Raso Dhamma, 10 million cupids in full-blown cupidity. Right? That's the charm, seductive charm and sweetness of the beautiful form of Mahaprabhu. Right? But following Babaji Maharaj's lead, saying, I find your verses are like those of Rupa. So that's really Rupa Goswami. And what does Guru Maharaj say? Svarna koti darpanava deho marna gauravam padma parijata ganda banditanga saurabam. Then this line. Koti kami murchitangri rupa rasarangaram prema dama devameva nomi gaura sundaram. That 10 million cupids will faint to see the beauty of Mahaprabhu. So Babaji Maharaj was right. He said, I sing your verses and songs because I find them to have that quality. Hare Krishna. So it's pranamami charanantika paricharaka sahitam. We worship the lotus feet of Sri Guru with his entourage, and he is part of the entourage of Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Gurudev, on the Mat publication, the Bengali songbook, you've seen, he put Krishnadas Babaji Maharaja's picture on the cover and was dedicated to him. And he's the one, you can still see at the Mat, the doorways, where it says, Pujala Ragapat Gaurava Matalasana Kirtana Range. He wanted to put them up there, and that's why Gurudev modified that sloka. He liked to put little signs around that tell you to chant the holy name. Sing one pointed focus. And as Guru Maharaj said the last time we met, the holy name gives you everything. It's Krishna himself. So they're utterly, completely satisfied in taking Krishna Nam. And such an exalted soul was Srila Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hari Harai Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Hari Harai Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Echai Gochai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignanas Abhista Puran Echai Gochai Jar Mui Tarodas Kansabara Padarenu Mora Panchagras Kandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Mor Ei Abhilas Echai Gochai Jabe Braje Koilovas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriya Hari Nam Sankirtan Koe Narottamada Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Gaur Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Gaur Hari Bo Jai Gaur Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Gaur Hari Bo Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parivrajakaacharya Sattva Sri Srimad Shri Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Raksak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Bhagavan Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundar Ji Ki Jai Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Sundar Ji Ki Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Srila Krishnadas Babaji Maharaja Tirobab Mahamahotsav ki jai, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Go Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki jai, Sri Gupta Govardhan ki jai, Ganga Devi, Jamuna Devi, Bhakti Devi, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Om Vishnupad Vishva Varenya, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Acharya Vrinda ki jai, Jai Srila Bhakti Vimalabhadut Maharaj ki jai, Sannyasi Vrinda ki jai, Jai Sri Bhakti Lalita Devi Dasi ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande.
Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki jai. And Maharaj,
and all the Nectar Lake city devotees. Ki jai. Krishna Lilam Rita Sar Tar Shata Shata Dar Das Dike Jaha Hoite Se Chaitanya Lila Hoy Sarovara Akshoy Manasa Hangsa Charaha Tahate. Let the swan of your mind swim in the nectar lake of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's what they do there.
Jai. Maharaj Dandavats from Lila Sundar Prabhu and Arjun Prabhu, Ukraine, Rasnanda Prabhu, Russia, Krishna Kanti Didi, Divya Shakti Didi, Purushottam Prabhu and Kalyani Didi, USA, Ananda Lila from Brazil, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, UK, Gaura Shakti Prabhu, Mayapur, India, Nanda Nanda.
And Mayapur.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Nanda Nandana Didi, Kelly Kadampa Didi, Australia, and from Shripat Vigrahanyasi Maharaj. Please convey my Dandavat to Srila Goswami Maharaj. Also please convey my affectionate Dandavats and respect to Vinodini, Ram, Asha and Carly.
Wow,
course,
getting the blessings from that nectar lake from Srimad Bhakti Vigrahanyasi Maharaj.
And of course,
we can feel it. And of course,
to all the Chenmai inmates.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Hare Krishna. That looks like Saraswati, is it? I don't know. Hare Krishna. All right. Bhagavan Das Prabhu Dandavat. Kum Kum Didi Dandavat. Oh, speaking of Nam Chantamani in Kiev, Dandavat. Chaitanya Nitai Prabhu in Vrindavan, Dandavat. Rupa Vilas Prabhu in Philippines, Dandavat. Gokulatarani Didi Dandavat. Jivana Didi Dandavat. Jamuna's mother, Elena, and Masu Dandavat. Oh, his little friend. Rasananda and Sochi Dandavat. Vrinda, Devidasi, and Nizhny Novgorod. Kalindi Priya's mom, Dandavat. Sulakshana Didi is doing the Chinese translation. Praneshri Didi doing Espanol. Hare Krishna.
Kishore from Abkhazia, from Moscow.
Jai Kishore Prabhu, Braja Kishore?
Yeah.
Braja Kishore Prabhu, Dandavat. Ajita, Dandavat, Petersburg Street. There's Kalindi Priya, Dandavat with
Ajitasha.
Ajitasha. Hare Krishna. Gaurachandra Prabhu, Dandavat. Pavel Brun Prabhu in Moscow, Dandavat. Supriya Didi in China, Hare Krishna, Dandavat. Yuteshri Didi in Zaporizhia, Hare Krishna, Dandavat. Extra Dandavat, you know. Sandeep Krishna Prabhu and Maheshri Didi. So, Mirat Borelli. Mirat one city, Borelli another city, you know what I'm talking about. Seva Rupa Didi in South Africa, Dandavat. Paramananda Prabhu and Krishna Priya Didi, Dandavat. And Krung Tep, Nakan. Ira Devi Dasi in Russia, Dandavat. Leela Sundar Prabhu, Dandavat. Rasananda Prabhu in Ukraine, Dandavat. Hare Krishna. Suchitra Didi, Dandavat. Yulia in Kazakhstan, Dandavat. Dhananjaya Prabhu, Dandavat. Nityananda Das here doing the Russian translation. Jai Srimad Srila Bhakti Ranjan Madhusudan Maharaj.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Ostensibly in Vila Govinda ashram. The Vila Govinda Bhakta Vrinda. There he is, Dandavat Maharaj. Hare Krishna. He's in the Van currently, the Vrindavan. Madhavi Didi Dandavat, Viroja Didi Dandavat. Who else? Satya in Egypt. Wow, Hare Krishna. Dandavat. Brajalatika in Orsk, Dandavat. Ananta Shesh Prabhu in Spain, Dandavat. Damodar Das, Dandavat. Nadia Priya in Ukraine, Dandavat.
Maharaj, Tava Kata Katamrita.
Tava Katamritam.
Prafula Krishna Prabhu.
Prafula Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat.
Ananda Nidhi Prabhu.
Ananda Nidhi Prabhu, Dandavat. Wow. There he is. Oh yeah, Ananda Nidhi, Dandavat, I think. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your help and support. Hare Krishna. All right. Vanchakalpatribhyasta kripa sindhu vevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Our dandavats to one and all. Hare Krishna. Tava katamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiritam kalmashapaham sravanamangalam srimaratadam bhuvi grananti te buridajana. Those who tell us about Krishna, they're the real saviors of the world. Hare Krishna. They're doing the real service to humanity. Hare Krishna. Dandavat.
Jai Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.